What if I told you the greatest college football player ever wasn't a quarterback? That before the NIL deals and transfer portals, there were running backs so dominant they made grown men cry on national television. These weren't just athletes, they were mythological creatures in cleats. From Heisman legends to guys who rewrote the record books like it was light work, today we're counting time. Spoiler alert, your favorite probably didn't even crack the top 5. Let's get into the chaos. 10th on our list is Marcus Allen, just a clean-cut California kid with legs like pistons and a mission to leave no yard unclaimed. At USC, Allen wasn't just a star, he was the entire solar system. The Trojans ran their offense through him like an old-school jukebox. You put a play in, and Marcus made the magic happen. Let's talk about that 1981 season, because it wasn't just good, it was video game broken. Allen rushed for 2,427 yards on 433 carries. Yes, 433, which is more than some NFL guys get in a whole career. And this wasn't some cupcake schedule. USC was still in the meat grinder of the old Pac-10. Marcus averaged over 212 yards per game and still had enough juice to find the end zone 22 times. That season won him the Heisman Trophy, the Walter Camp Award, the Maxwell Award, and a permanent spot in the nightmares of every defensive coordinator on the West Coast. But what people forget, man, this is where it gets gangster, is that Allen spent his first couple years at USC blocking for another Heisman winner, Charles White. That's like being the backup singer in a platinum band, then dropping your own double album that outsells the original group. Allen went from fullback to full-blown phenom without missing a step, and when he finally got the backfield to himself, he rewrote the playbook with a Sharpie. The man wasn't just athletic, he was elegant. His stride was so smooth he looked like he was floating. He didn't just run through holes, he danced through chaos, made defenders miss in space, then stiff-armed the safety out of the television frame. His balance was inhuman. Marcus could be falling sideways and still turn a 3-yard loss into a 25-yard gain like he had cheat codes turned on. He didn't just run the ball, he glided, sliced, and surgically dismantled defenses like a scalpel in shoulder pads. He finished his college career with 4,810 rushing yards, 46 touchdowns, and the kind of resume that makes future Hall of Famers say, yeah, I watched him growing up. And don't even start with the, well, what about his NFL career? Because this ain't that list. But just for the record, he won a Super Bowl, was named MVP, and made it to Canton. That's just the epilogue. In college, though, Marcus Allen was different. Not just great, transcendent. He was the gold standard for workhorse backs before that phrase even existed. And if you ever doubt his dominance, go back and watch that 81 tape. He didn't just carry the ball. He carried the program, the conference, and anyone who ever bet USC against the spread. Doak Walker wasn't just a college football star, he was the original star, like before color TV, before the SEC became a religion, before quarterbacks had handlers and private QB coaches in 7th grade. Doak Walker was that guy. He was the reason people showed up to watch SMU games in the 40s, wearing suits and fedoras like it was church. And honestly, for a while, Doak was God in Dallas. Standing at just 5'11", 170 pounds soaking wet, Walker didn't look like he should be breaking tackles and tossing touchdowns, but that's exactly what he did, on both sides of the ball, by the way, because back then you weren't a real one unless you were returning kicks, punting, running the ball, throwing the ball, and maybe even painting the end zones yourself. Doak did all of it and made it look classy. Let's break it down. He was a 3-time All-American, won the Heisman Trophy in 1948, and helped SMU win a Southwest Conference title. But stats alone don't do him justice because, frankly, record-keeping back then was sketchier than a used car lot. What we do know is that Walker rushed for over 1,900 yards, passed for over 1,000 yards, scored over 300 points, and probably sold concessions at halftime. The man was a walking triple threat, literally. And here's the thing, he didn't play in some rinky-dink league. The Southwest Conference was a bloodbath at the time, with Texas, Arkansas, and TCU all fielding goon squads. And yet Doak ran circles around them like he had tomorrow's playbook. SMU's stadium was nicknamed the house that Doak built because ticket sales went nuclear the minute he put on the uniform. But Doak's game wasn't just substance, it had style. He played with a certain finesse, like he was aware that sports writers were going to name trophies after him. He'd juke you, stiff-arm your cousin, and still have time to throw a 40-yard spiral on the run. He made football look elegant, like ballet and cleats. You'd swear he had a built-in slow-motion filter before that was even a thing. And the name? Doak. It just sounds legendary. You can't be named Doak and not be a football icon. That's not a name. It's a brand. It's a statue waiting to happen. There's a reason the Doak Walker Award is given to the best running back in college football every year. It's not just because he was good, it's because he was the standard for what a complete game-changing back should look like. He did it all before it was cool. Hell, he did it before helmets had face bars. So yeah, laugh all you want about him playing before the iPhone or the forward pass got trendy, but Doak Walker was the prototype. Without him, there's no Barry Sanders, no Reggie Bush, no highlight reels, just leather helmets and broken dreams. Reggie Bush wasn't just a football player, he was a cultural reset. He came through USC like a supernova, moving at a different speed, literally and metaphorically, and made it impossible to look away. Defenders didn't try to tackle him, they tried to guess where he might be 3 moves from now. Watching Bush was like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. He didn't just run, he flowed. He didn't cut, he teleported. And when he got into open space, all you could do was start thinking about the next offensive possession, because there was no catch site for college football fans. USC was already stacked with talent. Matt Leinart was so drip-lined, but Reggie was the difference. He turned great into historic, and that 2005 season, that was sorcery. Bush racked up over 2,600 all-purpose yards while averaging near down the sideline untouched. Everyone remembers the Fresno State game, and they should. Over 500 total yards, ankle-breaking cuts that should be preserved in the Smithsonian, and multiple defenders turning into crash test dummies on national television. That wasn't just a highlight reel, that was performance art. That was Reggie Bush at the peak of his powers. Double A tried to pretend it didn't happen. They took his Heisman away over a scandal that, in hindsight, looks more ridiculous every year, especially now that players can cash in on NIL deals legally. But Reggie didn't fade away. He stayed in the hearts of fans, in the memories of everyone who watched him cook entire defenses like a backyard grill session. And in 2024, justice finally got served. His Heisman trophy was reinstated. The trophy, Reggie of his generation, maybe the most electrifying ever. He changed the game, changed the expectations, and turned running back into a show-stealing position again. Bush was more than dominant, he was cinematic, and when you watched him, you didn't just expect greatness, you expected to witness something you'd never seen before. Before ESPN, before color broadcasts, before the Heisman even existed, there was Red Grange. And when he ran, the country followed. He wasn't just a running back, he was the reason college football exploded into the national spotlight. This man pulled America out of the baseball bleachers and shoved it into packed stadiums on fall Saturdays. He didn't just run the ball, he put the sport on his back and dragged it out of the Stone Age. Nicknamed the Galloping Ghost, Grange played like someone who had unlocked time travel. Defenders weren't just outmatched, they were outclassed, outpaced, and out of their league entirely. In an era where most players ran straight into a pile of linemen and prayed for daylight, Red was already out the gate and halfway to the train station. He had a style that looked futuristic in the 1920s, shifty, agile, calculated, like he saw the game 2 seconds before it happened. The most legendary moment of his career came in 1924 against Michigan, a game that feels more like folklore than fact. In front of 67,000 fans, an enormous crowd for the time, Grange returned the opening kickoff 95 yards for a touchdown, then scored 3 more touchdowns on his next 3 carries, totaling 4 TDs in the first 12 minutes. That's not a football game, that's a one-man bank robbery. And he wasn't done. He finished the day with 6 touchdowns and over 400 all-purpose yards. Michigan had entered with a 20-game winning streak. Grange ended it like it was light work. Over his career at Illinois, Grange rushed for 3,362 yards, scored 31 touchdowns, and played in an era where stats were about as well tracked as Bigfoot sightings. But even the scribbled numbers we do have are enough to know he was utterly dominant. He made All-American every single year he played and was voted the greatest college football player of all time by ESPN in 2008. That's over 80 years after he played a down. Name someone else still getting flowers that long after their cleats hit grass. Red Grange wasn't just good, he was the sport's first celebrity. He went straight from college to signing with the Chicago Bears in the NFL, which, at the time, was like leaving Broadway to join your friend's garage band. The league was fledgling and barely holding on, and then Red Grange showed up and filled entire stadiums. That's the kind of influence he had. He made football a thing people actually wanted to pay to watch. Look, it's easy to overlook a guy from a time when film was grainy and face masks were a luxury, but Red Grange is foundational. He's the Babe Ruth of college football. When you talk about the greatest running backs of all time, you don't skip the ghost. You tip your cap, acknowledge the era, and recognize that without Grange, this whole sport might still be fighting for airtime with bowling. Bo Jackson wasn't a college running back. He was an SEC myth come to life. He didn't just run through defenders. He ran past, over, and straight through their souls like he had somewhere more important to be. If you asked the football gods to create the perfect athlete, they'd shrug and say, "We already did. His name's Bo." At 6 feet 1 inch, 230 pounds, Bo ran a 4.140, and that's not a typo, that's a declaration of war. He was built like a linebacker, moved like a wide receiver, and hit like a freight train with no brakes. Tackling Bo was like trying to stop a pickup truck while wearing flip-flops. Defenders didn't wrap him up, they hung on for dear life and waited for the ride to end. Bo played at Auburn from 1982 to 1985 and made an impact the second his cleats hit the grass. Injuries slowed him a bit in 1984, but when he was healthy, he was untouchable. In 1985, he delivered one of the greatest seasons in SEC history, rushing for 1,786 yards and 17 touchdowns in just 11 games. That performance earned him the Heisman Trophy, and honestly, they should have named it after him right then and there. He didn't just win games, he erased defenders from existence and left highlight reels smoldering behind him. Bo's career stats, 4,303 rushing yards and 43 touchdowns, don't even tell half the story, because Bo's greatness wasn't just in the box score, it was in the fear he created. You could see it in linebackers cheating 6 steps back. You could hear it in the crowd gasping when he broke into the second level. You could feel it when he stiff-armed a dude into the crust of the earth and didn't even break stride. And the thing is, Bo didn't even need football. He was also a baseball All-American at Auburn and went on to become a two-sport legend, the only man to ever be an NFL Pro Bowler and an MLB All-Star. But in college, football was where he became a god. Every time Bo touched the ball, you knew you were about to witness something that made you question whether physics was optional. There's a reason Bo knows became a household phrase, because the man knew everything. He knew how to run with power. He knew how to hit a second gear that broke camera frames. He knew how to leap over piles like gravity owed him money. And if you were in his way, he knew exactly how to ruin your Saturday. Bo Jackson wasn't just a running back. He was the closest thing college football has ever seen to a superhero. And if he had played in today's era with more games, better health, and ESPN hype machines, we'd be talking about him as the GOAT, not just in football, but in sports, period. If running backs were paintings, Tony Dorsett was an oil-on-canvas masterpiece. While some backs bulldozed and others juked, Dorsett glided. He made 4-yard runs look like ballet and 40-yarders look like light work. And when he broke into the open field, game over. You might as well cue the band and change the scoreboard. Tony Dorsett came to the University of Pittsburgh in 1973 as a skinny 165-pound freshman with a chip on his shoulder and fire in his feet. It didn't take long before the whole country knew his name. As a freshman, he racked up 1,686 yards, and just to be clear, this was back when freshmen weren't even supposed to start, let alone dominate. But Tony didn't care about the rules. He just wanted the ball in a sliver of daylight. By the time he was done, Dorsett had rewritten the NCAA record books. He finished his career with 6,082 rushing yards, which was the all-time record at the time and is still top 5 all-time today. That's not just productive, that's absurd. He had 36 games over 100 rushing yards and averaged over 150 yards per game across 4 seasons. He didn't just show up, he showed out every single week. In 1976, Dorsett had the kind of season that gets whispered about in Pittsburgh bars like a football bedtime story. He ran for 2,150 yards, scored 22 touchdowns, and led Pitt to a national championship, their first since 1937. And oh yeah, he won the Heisman Trophy, the Maxwell Award, and about every other trophy they could find lying around. That season was so dominant, it turned Pitt from a mid-tier program into a national powerhouse overnight. What made Dorsett special wasn't wasn't just the stats. It was how he did it. He ran with elegance and economy, never wasting a step. His vision was elite, his cuts were lightning fast, and his acceleration left defenders frozen in place like they accidentally pressed pause. Tackling Tony Dorsett was like trying to catch a paper airplane in a wind tunnel. He was always one step ahead, and by the time you realized where he was going, he was already in the end zone. And the coolest part? He wasn't flashy off the field. No antics, no trash talk, just a quiet killer with gold cleats and a Hall of Fame motor. He came to work, did damage, and walked off like it was no big deal. The kind of humble excellence that makes legends feel even bigger in hindsight. Tony Dorsett didn't just play running back, he perfected it. His legacy at Pitt is untouchable, his stats are timeless, and his highlights, they still hold up, even in an era where everyone runs a 4.3. He was smooth, efficient, and devastating. The football equivalent of a scalpel wrapped in silk. Archie Griffin is the only player in college football history to win the Heisman Trophy twice. That's not a typo, that's not a stat padded with qualifiers. That's the fact. 2 Heismans, back to back, one for each shoulder, because carrying Ohio State to glory, that often requires balance. He played from 1972 to 1975 and was a problem from day one. As a freshman, he set the school's single-game rushing record with 239 yards in just his second game. And that wasn't against a cupcake team, that was against North Carolina. It was like Archie showed up, saw the upperclassmen and said, "Nah, I got this." Over 4 years, he rushed for 5,589 yards, which was the NCAA record when he graduated. He went over 100 rushing yards in 31 consecutive games, which is not just consistent, it's psychotic. You know how hard it is to be great once? Archie did it every Saturday like it was a damn job. But the crazy part is that he didn't rely on size or speed to get it done. Griffin wasn't built like Bo Jackson, and he didn't have Reggie Bush level flash. He stood just 5 feet 9 inches and weighed around 185 pounds. He looked more like the guy who sells you car insurance than the most decorated player in college football history, until the ball was snapped. Then he turned into a blur of balance, vision, and patience. He didn't hit holes, he exploited them. His ability to change direction and read blocks in real time was elite, and he had this low center of gravity that made him bounce off tacklers like a pinball made of granite. Under Woody Hayes, who loved 3 things: running the football, yelling about running the football, and reminding people he was going to run the football, Griffin was the ideal weapon. And even when defenses knew he was getting the ball, it didn't matter. He still piled up yards like it was a Costco special. Defenses would sell out to stop him, and by the 3rd quarter, they were just trying to survive. He helped lead the Buckeyes to 4 Big Ten titles, took them to 4 Rose Bowls, and in every big moment, Archie showed up. Maybe that's why he got the Heisman twice. Voters looked at their ballots and said, "Who else are we kidding here?" And listen, some folks try to minimize his achievements because he didn't have the flashiest highlight reel, but that's like discrediting Beethoven because he didn't do dance remixes. Archie Griffin's greatness wasn't about individual plays, it was about relentless excellence over time. He wasn't a lightning strike, and he was a damn sunrise. Reliable, steady, and unstoppable. To this day, Archie stands alone in that Heisman club, and unless someone invents a time machine or starts juicing toddlers, he might be the only one in there forever. That's not just greatness, that's immortality. Ricky Williams didn't just break records, he obliterated them. He treated defenses like personal therapy sessions, steamrolling through them to work out whatever stress he had that day. Watching him play was like watching a linebacker get handed the ball and told, "Go be the problem." And buddy, Ricky was the problem every single Saturday. Let's not sugarcoat it, this man was built different. 5 feet 10 inches, 225 pounds, with thighs like tree trunks and enough speed to leave cornerbacks grasping at air. And that wasn't just a gym build. Ricky ran with vision, patience, and controlled violence. He could make one cut and vanish like Houdini, or lower his shoulder and introduce a safety to the Earth's crust. He had the rare combo of finesse and punishment. Like if Barry Sanders decided to bench 400 pounds just for fun. He exploded onto the scene at Texas in 1995, but his true detonation came in his senior season in 1998. That year, he rushed for 2,124 yards and 27 touchdowns in just 11 games. Let that marinate. On over 2,100 yards in 11 games. That's like showing up to the SAT with a flamethrower. And yeah, he won the Heisman Trophy, the Doak Walker Award, the Maxwell Award, the Walter Camp Award, and probably would have won the Grammy for Best New Artist if they let him try. But the numbers? Let's talk the real numbers. Ricky finished his career with 6,279 rushing yards, breaking Tony Dorsett's 22-year-old NCAA career rushing record. That's not just breaking a record, that's slaying a record. And he did it in dramatic fashion too, stiff-arming defenders into their next job applications while the Texas crowd lost its collective mind. Every time he touched the ball, it felt like something historic was about to happen. And half the time, it did. The wild part? Ricky did all this with a sense of calm that bordered on spooky. He wasn't loud. He didn't taunt. He just lined up, took the handoff, and went full Thanos on whoever dared get in his way. There was a zen to the way he ran, like a hurricane doing Tai Chi. He even wore his helmet low so you could barely see his eyes, just dreadlocks bouncing behind him as he blew past people who wished they'd majored in accounting instead. And while his NFL career had its own roller coaster moments, that's not what we're here for. We're talking college. And in college, Ricky Williams was an unstoppable freight train with a diploma. His style was raw, powerful, and relentless. He didn't just beat you, he outlasted you. And once you were worn down, he'd drop 80 yards on your head like a punishment from the football gods. Ricky Williams made the run game an art form in Austin, and when he left, he took the NCAA record book with him and left behind nothing but broken tackles and legends. Barry Sanders' 1988 season wasn't just the greatest season by a college running back. It might be the most ridiculous individual campaign in sports history. You don't need hyperbole to describe it, you just need the stats. But since this list is part barbershop debate, part Hall of Fame induction, let's break it down the right way. In 1988, Barry rushed for 2,628 yards and 37 touchdowns. That's not a typo, and that's not including the bowl game, which pushed him over 2,800 yards and 39 touchdowns in just 12 games. If you're doing the math at home, that's averaging more than 200 yards per game and scoring basically every quarter. Defenses came in with game plans and left needing therapy, and the wildest part, Barry was a backup the year before. He sat behind Thurman Thomas, another future NFL legend, and still managed to make an impact on special teams. But once Barry got the starting gig in '88, it was a wrap. He turned every defense into a blooper reel. His cuts were inhuman. His acceleration looked like a DVD stuck on fast forward. Watching Barry in space was like watching water find a crack in concrete, inevitable and impossible to stop. Barry didn't run through defenders. He made them miss so badly they needed to call tech support. He'd start left, juke back right, spin out of 3 tackles, and leave the safety trying to figure out how the laws of physics had just been rewritten. He was 5 steps ahead of everyone else, and he never looked like he was trying. The man moved like his cleats were made of air and disrespect. There was something different about Barry, a compact 5 feet 8 inches ball of muscle and motion who never celebrated, never talked trash, and still made everyone watching lose their damn minds. He'd score from 70 out, casually hand the ball to the ref, and jog to the sideline like he was late for study hall. That humility, that made it worse for defenses, because nothing says dominance like making people look foolish and acting like it was no big deal. Of course, he won the Heisman Trophy in 1988. That wasn't a vote, that was a coronation. He didn't just win it, he lapped the field, and while he only started for 1 full season, it was such a supernova of greatness that it secured his spot on any all-time list, no questions asked. Barry Sanders was the walking, cutting, juking embodiment of you can't teach that. And even though he only had 1 year to prove it, that single season did enough to put his name next to the legends who did it for 4. He wasn't just great, he was untouchable. Herschel Walker didn't wait his turn. He didn't ease into college football like some scared freshman feeling out the speed of the game. Nah, Herschel kicked the door in at Georgia like he was already the starter, the backup, and the head coach rolled into one. From the second he took the field in 1980, he was the guy. And by the end of that season, he had bulldozed his way into legend. As a true freshman, Walker racked up 1,616 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns, leading the Bulldogs to a perfect season and a national title. And keep in mind, this wasn't a high-flying modern offense. This was Herschel running it right down your throat, play after play, until your defense folded like laundry. He was the offense. Everyone knew it. Nobody could stop it. Over just 3 seasons at Georgia, he rushed for 5,259 yards and 52 touchdowns, averaging over 160 yards per game. That's absurd by any era's standards. But for the early 80s, when defenses were tougher and everyone ran into 10-man boxes, it was straight up superhuman, and Herschel didn't just rack up garbage time yards or blow out weak opponents. He showed up when it mattered, stiff-arming linebackers into next week in the Sugar Bowl and outrunning secondaries in every big SEC clash. He finished top 3 in the Heisman voting all 3 years, finally winning it in 1982 after what was basically a career-long "you sure about that" to every voter who passed him up the previous 2. And when he won it, there was no doubt left. Over 1,700 yards, 16 touchdowns, and enough highlight reel runs to keep editors working overtime. The man looked like he was carved out of granite, but ran like he was late for a plane. And let's be real, Walker was a physical anomaly. At 6 feet 1 inch, 225 pounds, he had the thighs of a fullback and the speed of a sprinter. Dude ran a 4.340, was a nationally ranked track athlete, did ballet for flexibility, and apparently never skipped a push-up in his life. There are rumors he didn't lift weights and just did 1,000 bodyweight reps a day, which sounds like a myth. But then you watch him break 6 tackles on a toss sweep and you're like, yeah, I buy it. What set Herschel apart wasn't just the stats. It was the sheer brutality of his game. Defenders didn't try to tackle him, they tried to survive him. He didn't avoid contact, he initiated it, and most of the time, he finished it too. Watching Herschel run was like watching a heavyweight fight on fast forward. Every carry was a punch, and eventually the defense tapped out. Herschel Walker wasn't just a great college running back, he was a damn tank with a track star's engine, and even though he left for the USFL instead of the NFL straight away, his legacy in college was sealed the moment he bulldozed Tennessee's defense in his very first game. He didn't need 4 years, he didn't need gimmicks, he was just Herschel, and that was more than enough. Those are our top 10 college running backs of all time. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to press the like button and subscribe. We are trying to hit 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year and would love your support. If you enjoyed this video, check out our last one about the 10 best draft steals of all time.